All right, so folks, what you're about to see here are conversations with my board members. Board members, I mean, it's a loose term that I use because of Patreon. So, about a year ago, I realized like, some of these other UA YouTubers are in like, some things are bad things are happening to their YouTube channels. What do we have to do? So I went to Patreon and I said, okay, just come over here for free. But I also set up tiers just in case, like if something goes wrong with YouTube, maybe I can, still have some stability here. I've done that again now with Spotify, where what I've done is I've created an audio only version of this that's on Spotify. Now, the people that are here are what we call board members in a tier. It's only on Patreon, and so there's like students and colleagues and students, undergrad students, graduate students, colleagues, and then board members. Board members are in this top tier, and because they have actually gone out of their way to support me like they have, I want to hear what they have to say. And not just like for a shady deal, but like they've already shown me that they care about this and they want to be involved and right. So for that reason, it's like kind of like Polymarket, right? I believe what Polymarket or Predicted says with some sustainability because people are like stepping up. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. Okay, so I have some questions for you, and we're going to go through a number of topics here. And this is the same introduction that you'll see in some of the other in different topics as we go through this. So if it sounds repetitive, maybe it is. So I have a half dozen or so topics that we're going to go through. Okay, so here's the topic I want to talk about now. Um, U.S. foreign policy. What happened? Like something just shifted radically in our foreign policy where we're talking about our, we're going to make Canada a 51st state and we must have Greenland, and the Danes, they were terrible allies, but we're coasting to Russia. What on earth? How do you process what you've seen here? I know Kevin has strong feelings. I know how Alex has strong feelings. Tell me about what you're seeing.
Well, elbows up. But essentially, there is a theory, not mine. So Igor Lipsitz, he's a Russian professor in economy. I follow him. He was making a lot of predictions which came true. That's why I still listen to him.
What's his name?
Uh, Igor Lipsitz. You
Okay.
quoted him once in the video, in fact. We can try and set up, some bi-weekly or monthly meetings, like I can try and reach out, I think he speaks English. And he does like a lot of commentary on YouTube, so he could be a perfect insights like into what's happening in Russia and so on.
Yeah.
He's a very unbiased, like very like scientific, like, so you might
I'm
enjoy
open
that.
to that. Okay. At any rate, he
I'll
said,
reach out. But what he was talking about Trump and his foreign policy, he was saying that to his horror, he sees that Trump is following something like a 19th century old theory. There is a Monroe theory, like or Monroe
Monroe
foreign
Doctrine.
policy doctrine. Thank you.
Yep.
Which was saying that United States should just focus on the Western Hemisphere. It must be hegemonies, like hegemon there, like it must control everything, and it must not worry about like anything else. That explains why Trump is hostile towards Canada and Greenland. He wasn't in the first term, I think Putin or
Hmm.
whatever, someone sold him on that doctrine. That's why he hates Europe, because what he wants to do, he wants to divide the world between United States and China and say this part of the world is China and they can do whatever, like free for all and just go nuts. And this is us, and we can do whatever, free for all, go nuts. And this is his mentality, this is his worldview. Europe is a third center of power, and it's annoying to Trump and to Vance because of that. And I don't know if it's true, but like that single point of view explains so many vector of random insanity.
So it does. I don't know if I buy it, but it does explain some things. And unfortunately, some things have more greater explanatory power than they should. And I'm not sure if
Right.
this is one of them, but it's an interesting thought, Kevin.
Yeah, during the first Trump administration, it was caught on tape and photographs, still photographs, of Trump being, frankly, embarrassed by political leaders. Trudeau mocked Trump and was caught on camera doing it. Angela Merkel held Trump to task at one moment, and there's a great photo of many of the European countries gathered around Merkel, and Merkel leaning in on Trump with a pretty stern expression on her
Mhm.
face, calling Trump out. And there's been a lot of conversation about, gosh, does Trump hold grudges? And does Trump,
That seems to have some explanatory power too.
as I recall, post some of those incidents, when Canada hosted a major meeting and Trudeau was there, again during the first Trump administration, uh, Trump absolutely went bombastic, did everything he could to embarrass Trudeau, fired off a bunch of names and walked out. And he's held that attitude all the way to his second attempt. So I mean, there is a level of ego and vengeance, petty vengeance, that sits within that man, and and he goes for it. And unfortunately, the lack of professionalism by others. I think Merkel was more professional in how she challenged Trump, and Trudeau was too busy, the little smirking schoolboy that got caught out yipping and yapping behind somebody's back, and he paid a price for it.
So that also seems to have some explanatory power. Like think about the Obama dinner, the it's supposed to be a funny, dinner where they're telling jokes and that sort of thing, and he told some at Trump's expense, and like some commentators say that's the thing,
The,
that is
the
the final
close up
thing
of
that,
Trump's face, the close up of Trump's face
yeah,
during that dinner when Obama was the absolute glare
yeah.
of hate that was,
So that
it was.
I think what you said has as much explanatory power as anything Alex just said. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what. So what else can we shed light on this? What else are you thinking about? Uh, the rest of you.
I think that there's an interesting aspect to the relationship with Elon Musk.
Okay.
Uh, if you look at Musk's history and his family history, there is a strong neo-Nazi connection. And I don't know, are you familiar with the PayPal mafia?
Yeah, sure. The Peter
Yeah,
Thiel and
right.
yeah.
And it, that's what Trump has chosen to bring into his circle. We always think that Trump is just about the deal, but I wonder if he doesn't have sort of an extreme version of libertarian ideas. It seems like he wants to return us to the era of the robber barons and sort of a pre-World War One. Uh,
So that's interesting. So
um,
as you're talking, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
yeah,
thought you
no,
were done.
no, go ahead.
As we're what you just triggered in my mind is Trump talking about, like, he seems to separate the world into two groups. There's the killers and the kings, and then there's the other people. Like, and or you either have this genetically, you're either this type of person or you're not.
Yeah,
And he's talked about that at great length a number of times in various places. And I think he sees himself and maybe Elon and some other people as, and maybe Putin's in that category, as these are the real movers and shakers and these are not. Maybe that's explanatory. I don't know. But everything that you've all said have helped us kind of triangulate from different directions on how we should be processing things.
I do not think that Trump is compromised. I think that he admires Putin. It's part of his philosophy of the world. And given some of the things about the porn star and all that stuff that has come out, what could you possibly invest with to make him
Right.
do what you want? Uh,
Right.
so I don't think he's compromised. I think these are his internal core values.
Yeah. Kevin wants to say something again.
Well, it is interesting when you understand how, and again, in your background, politics and leadership, professor, when people like Putin use his subjects and his citizens pretty much as expendable serfs, and he can throw them in their thousands and tens of thousands to the point where we're close to 1 million casualties, dead and injured.
Before June.
Yeah, and he can throw them against a wall, and the nation does not rise up.
Yeah.
Now you come inside the American dynamic, and it's interesting that Trump was able to mobilize a large segment of American society under MAGA, and then now in power, barely for, we haven't hit the full 3-month mark yet, but the wrecking ball that Trump has swung that has impacted Medicaid, veterans, pensions, and to the point where MAGA Republicans, white-haired senior citizens like me in red states are itching to have a town hall with their Republican representative.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a directive out there that says thou shalt host no town halls because cameras are going to show up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've just been watching some of these town halls, and they're,
you know, for, excuse me, but when I use Putin and serfs, and I use Trump and gray-haired mega masses, when the betrayal happens, the leaders that were doing the betrayal are still holding power, and the masses either can't make an impact or won't make an impact. So, you know, Trump is going to go unchecked at the moment. So I'm curious as to how this plays out, where America gets upset enough, and they're not going to get upset over Ukraine.
yeah, you know, and that's a really interesting point. Somebody said this in another context here in this group, that like foreign policy is pretty low. It is. It was like the ninth or the 11th aspect of what people were voting for in the last election, which is, I mean, it should have more importance, but it really is lower on the totem pole than it should be. Tom or David, did you have anything to say before I ask the next question?
Yeah, I just want to. So this was originally about Greenland. Again, agnosticism. I think you could torture yourself forever on what Trump is thinking and what's going to happen with him. If I really had to guess, there's probably nothing grand to it. It's probably just a desire to, have accomplished a big thing like adding Greenland to the U.S. I think it can be easy to forget how from the first administration there can be stories like this that Greenland is in the news today for the next month, and then in a month from now it's gone. We don't hear anything about it. Basically my philosophy is generally it's probably not that deep.
Yeah,
when it comes to things like this from the Trump administration, it's probably not that deep.
I have a theory, and I was on with Johnny Pierce, Jonathan Fink, and Greg Terry, and they weren't of a like mind with me. But my thought was that he just says stuff, and
Right.
then if something sticks, it sticks, and okay, it's a victory. And if it doesn't, he doesn't worry about that he said it. He's not worried about having to be consistent to it. And they're all up in arms, like, how could you say that he doesn't really mean things? No, he really, to my mind, as far as I can understand, doesn't really mean, like, let me just say that. Did it work? We're gonna own Gaza.
I'm in complete.
But and it just goes away. It evaporates a month later, like you just said. So I think there's something to that. But in the meantime, foreign policy is damaging. Like the Canadians are up in arms, right? Kevin, you're in Canada, right? Like, tell us, like, what's that like hearing the
all right.
U.S. president?
Let's settle down, and I'll give you the take for the next 20 minutes. The long and the short of it is, Trump has just had perhaps one of the most profound impacts on Canadian politics that I have seen since I've been following politics as a young teenager in the early 60s. The conservative movement, the hard, nasty right wing of Canada, was on the cusp of achieving a massive, overwhelming majority in election that we are going to have on the 28th of April. Trump has swung the mood to the point where it is now the federal liberals taking the lead on track to achieve a majority under our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, former Governor General of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England.
Mm-hmm.
We have a new player as a PM who's ready to play, and we're sitting there going, we associate Trump, rightly or wrongly, with that Canadian conservative movement, and we are so sickened by Trump, we've just swung the needle in our political.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? Like the effect that he's having on allies negatively, and bolstering the hopes of the Russians. Like, and you can see clearly that it is bolstering the hopes of the Russians. But okay, so here's why I would discount the idea that you're the 51st state kind of thing. You'll never have a Republican president ever again. If you do that. So it's just not, I mean, it's just fanciful talk to my mind. It's not something that, yeah. Anyway, okay.
A long time ago, when I was still working and on a major international project with Americans, Russian, Japanese, and Europeans, and we were gathered around the table, and an industrialist quipped to me something along the lines of Canada going in as part of the Americas, or part of America. And I said, why would Americans want, at then 30 some odd plus more million Democrats into their electoral system?
Exactly right.
The most radical Canadian wants first tier medical support paid by the government. And after that, we also have a passion for some other socialist programs which don't quite fit into the American dynamic. Yep. So 40 million new Democrats into the American collective doesn't seem to make sense, even if he tries to cluster us into one state as if it was just California.
Yeah, and so, but even then, the electoral numbers, it just doesn't make sense. But
No.
Yeah, he doesn't really mean this with Canada. He's just trying to get. But I can't tell. Maybe you know what's he trying to get.
We don't dismiss that.
Okay.
Trump has attacked us twice economically.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He's trying to get extort some kind of concession or deal or something. Not trying to take over politically, but I think he's trying to get something by saber rattling.
But this time we're pissed.
And I believe you, and I understand that.
And it's not going away for several. You know, will it take a generation to correct? It's going to have to take a major shift in American political dynamics, such as a giant transformation of the Republican Party and a get-together moment inside the Democrat Party. Major shifts have to happen in America before Canadians come off the shock of America is now a treacherous neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
A treacherous.
Yeah, and it's so sad to see. It didn't have to happen.
We cannot trust America because the guy who negotiated that trade agreement that Trump is now calling, funnily enough, if Trump looks in the mirror, he will meet the guy that negotiated that horrible agreement he no longer likes.
Yeah.
It's a Trump.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing. USMCA was I complained in my own textbook about USMCA, right? As opposed to what was NAFTA before that, and now he's complaining about the USMCA as a terrible agreement which he negotiated, which now we have to supersede.
And we no longer believe. I mean, we are very seriously concerned about respecting the rule of law, commercial or any other. So if you enter into an agreement and then the person that created that agreement denies that the agreement was any good, and then you try to go to some sort of court of arbitration to sort it out, and Trump just simply crosses his arms and says, I don't give a shit what any court says. I'm not changing what I'm going to do. So if there's no respect for rule of law and you have no trust or faith in the person that's running the agreement, where is Canada supposed to go?
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand Canada being upset. And it didn't have to happen. So, okay.
Well, it was a pleasure. Looking forward to nice to meet everybody who's come in new. Alex, good to see you again. Thanks, Professor.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care.